What's up, guys? This is going to be a quick video. I wanted to talk about, when people say attention to detail, a lot of people say that. They say that, in the army, they say that in coaches say that in the basketball game. And I don't know, like, what does it really mean? Like, no one's like just sat down and defined it, And it's kind of literal. It's literal. But I guess I just wanted to go into greater detail of what that entails. So let's reword it by calling it micro edges. That's what I think of. The first thing I think of when I hear someone say attention to detail, as it applies to competition. Excuse my nasally voice here. I'm a little under the weather. So what is a micro edge? Now we have to define a micro edge. So a micro edge is, we'll take an example. I heard an interview with Fader Holtz before, and he just obsessed over like how he's talking about how he got so good, and he said he obsessed for a while, and to every last detail he would obsess over any little thing he could do to help give him an edge on his competition, even the smallest little micro edge. And in this example he gave was like down to the chair he used when he grinded his online poker session. And I'm all about this. Like, I'm all about micro edges because I don't consider myself the most talented competitor. I'm not even going to say poker player, basketball player, whatever. Like, in any form of competition, I'm not the most talented. But I definitely don't pass up those micro edges. And like I said, I'm all about this shit, man. I'm all about this. That's like basically what this channel is about. And so some of my own examples of micro edges that I use in my everyday form of competition is just preparing. Let's say I'm getting ready for my poker tournament grind. I have my lunch ready. That way, when it comes break time, I'm not like rushing back to the table and missing a hand or kind of like distracted because I'm still kind of making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or whatever. Like, my shit's all ready. Like, I've got whether it be deviled eggs in the fridge, like ready to just eat. I don't know. Like, what this does for you mainly is it minimizes distractions. And what minimizing distraction does is helps you focus greater on details. And what focusing on greater on details does is gives you these little small edges here and there. And I'm telling you guys, it's hard to come by scrubs in competition. You're not just going to be able to bum hunt for your whole life, whatever form of competition it is. If you do, you're going to be like just kind of a meh competitor. If you really want to beat, the good players, not even the great players, this isn't going to, this is going to help you beat the great players because the great players, they're fucking airtight with their micro edges and they're like incredibly talented too. So that ain't going to do shit versus the great players, the ultimate competitors. If you're not doing the micro edges, it'll sure get you crushed. But let's just talk about. I don't want to, I don't really have any structure of this video. I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. So let's talk about some other micro edges you could use in your everyday competition. A micro edge in basketball would be you're sitting on the bench, right? Instead of goofing off with your friends, why don't you study the players that your opponents? Why don't you study your opponents, their tendencies, their habits? Just watch the game. You'd be surprised how just watching the game, and then even if you're not gonna play that game, you'd be surprised how later on in the season, maybe 6 years from that day, you'll remember. Not even it won't even necessarily remember a specific instance. It'll just become your intuition will become much better. And like I said, this may affect 6 years from down the road. Now, this this actually is can be considered much more than a micro edge because let's say, for example, every game you let's say you do this every game. Every time you're on the bench, you're not goofing off. You're watching every play that happens. Uh, you're building a template. You're building a vault on this dude. Like you have all this information, all these notes on this dude. And if he's not doing that, you're going to have this huge template on him. Even if it's not like, oh, he likes to do a sham god move or whatever, like whatever. Even if it's not something specific, your intuition is going to be way better than his. And even if he's a more talented player, like you're going to be able to close that gap between him big time if you're doing these kind of things. And he like if he's just sitting on the bench chilling, not even paying attention to the game, and you're doing these kind of things, you're gonna narrow that gap. And like if someone's two, like for example, two equal players, right? Let's say two players of equal skill level, and one person does this and the other person doesn't. Like it's not even gonna be close, guys. Like it's funny because almost what it always boils down to in competition is it's gonna boil down to like one of like three or four main like roots. And it seems like to me like the one it usually boils down to is like mental stamina. Your brain gets tired so fucking quick. And like I always talk about this, and like this is an example of if you can somehow not let your brain get tired and tap into this fucking brain power, like we only use like 11% of our brain or whatever the fuck it is. Like if you could somehow tap into that other fucking 89%, I mean, damn. Like even if you can tap into 1% more, that's actually 10% more than your opponent's using. Like if we only use 10% of our brain power and you're using 11%, you're actually using 10% more than your opponent. And how big of an edge is that? Now, it's probably not going to happen. You're probably going to at most be able to tap into like 0.01%, whatever. Arbitrary numbers, right? But that's my train of thought there. I was on such a roll. If you can tap into this other 1%, like an extra 1%. Oh, the four basic things it always kind of boils down to. The main one it always seems to boil down to is mental stamina. Like the very best players, like we kind of all have the same computer in here. Like we've all got fucking Windows XP, right? Or whatever metaphor you want to use. We've all got Windows XP. Like nobody really has like Windows 10 or something more powerful. Like everybody's pretty much got the same computer. Like I mean, yeah, some people have higher IQs, but I think that's due to them having more mental stamina. Not like it's almost like it's their heart, man. I hate to sound corny, but it's their heart. It's not their head. It's their heart that's giving them their brain like the will to fucking keep grinding longer periods of time. And I think that's why a lot of of the elites, they preach about meditation. And I mean, meditation is basically like increasing your mental stamina in many ways, because I mean, if you've ever tried it, it's just focus on your breathing, right? You're supposed to do nothing but focus on your breathing for X amount of time, however time you're gonna sit there, right? Give it a fucking try, guys. It's not easy. You would be surprised how quick your mind wanders. You're sitting there for like 5 seconds. You're like, Okay, breathe. You're thinking about your breathing. You're thinking about your breathing. You're thinking about some chick you're gonna fuck later. You're thinking about fucking your laundry is piling up. You're thinking about what's that smell? I gotta take out the trash. What's it, whatever it is, guys, whatever it is, it's your mind wanders like that. And that's because of mental stamina. So I don't think it's like these elite players are like necessarily smarter than the others. I think they've worked harder. They work longer. They're paying more attention to detail. Their brain's not getting tired, allowing them to gather all these micro edges, and these micro edges start piling up and piling up. Oops. And before you know it, it's no longer a micro edge. It's now like I'm crushing you. So maybe earlier when I said, like, oh, if a great player, if an elite player plays, a good player, neither one of them really are using micro edges to beat the other. But I think almost everything actually, like, look at it like this. I think almost everything is a micro edge. It's just that once they start piling up, one person becomes elite and the other person just becomes good because one person has had the mental stamina to put a quarter in the bank, put a quarter in the bank, put a quarter in the bank. Before you know it, they've got a fucking $1 million, and the other person's like, fucking penny here, penny there. They're not working hard at building their template. They're not working hard at like, and by template, I hope you realize I mean like their template on their opponent. They're not working as hard. Their mental stamina is not there. And again, I don't think it's like a computer thing. I think it's their fucking PSU. It's their power supply unit. It's their fucking heart, man. So, I mean, I could talk about this shit for hours. But we'll call that a video, guys. I hope that inspired you. I hope it motivated you. And I hope you learned something from it. And I hope most of all that you're kind of aware, not aware, what's the word I'm looking for, when you're kind of playing your game. I hope it's kind of in the back of your head, this little video you saw, and it kind of gives you a little extra reserve tank, a reserve fuel tank there. And maybe you'll hear my voice in the back of your head. I know sometimes when I'm playing poker or something, like I'll hear Doug Polk saying, if I'm doing this, I'll have too many bluffs here. And I hear his voice there sometimes. I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to bluff this because if I bluff this, I'm going to have too many bluffs here. So I hope you hear my little voice in your head saying, like, dig into that reserve tank, build your template, build your template, build your template, and hope for the best. One last thing, I really want to give one last example, actually, because this is something I was thinking about today when I was playing PUBG. So, you're looting, right? You're looting in PUBG, right? And see, PUBG is a game of micro edges, because how can you really get an edge on your opponent in PUBG? Like, oh, he's got a scar. I have an M4, and M4's better than a scar, so I'll probably win the engagement, really. Like, how much better is it? It's not really gonna do shit. Oh, the fire rate is better, so it's barely better. Like, okay, but now your fire rate's a little better, right? But let's say, all these micro edges start to add up. Like, let's say you fuck, I don't know. You have a 4x and he has a 2x scope. Well, now you're going to be able to aim for the head and he's not. Or yeah, basically, actually that's quite a bit more than a micro edge. It's not, it's a significant edge. It's not really a good example because we're talking about micro edges. I was thinking about it earlier, and there was just all these little things I was thinking about that I was like, wow, it's just like, it's really like all this looting that I'm doing in PUBG, like all these little things that I'm getting, they're not really going to do much for me. But all of them combined is going to make a significant difference. It's going to create a larger than a micro edge. It's just going to create an edge at that point. Once you factor in every little micro edge that I've kind of built, it's like I'm building a shelter. I'm building a shelter. First, it's a straw hat, a little straw hut, and then I'm kind of putting some clay over it, and then I'm reinforcing it with bricks or something. You know, it's like it's getting better and better and better. And before you know it, you've got a legit house. You know, all these micro edges add up. Okay, enough rambling. I hope you learned something, guys, and I'll see you later.